The American footballer was called Kaepernick, I hope I've expressed that correctly, and in relationship to Nike. You might have remembered that 2 or 3 years ago, American footballers actually started to kneel during the national anthem. Trump went furious, he hated that. Since then, that's become a very, very big story in the United States. And recently, in early September, Nike used the person who started this off, a chap called Kaepernick, a famous American footballer, as their star turn in a new set of adverts on Nike, which means, well, they use "just do it." Now, what happened after that advert was that Nike sales actually surged by 30% because Nike had addressed a social issue. Kaepernick's issue was all about racism in the United States, treatment of colored people by police. And that protest has continued, and you might have seen some of the controversy. You might also have heard of the Koch brothers. The Koch brothers, fabulously wealthy brothers in the United States, made a fortune from mining, and have been a tremendous supporter of the extreme part of the Republican Party for the last few years. And in fact, they supported people like Mike Pence and Scott Walker and Mike Pompeo and so on during their campaign. Koch brothers' policy objectives have pretty much realized since the President Trump took office. However, they're getting a little bit worried. They don't care too much about social issues. However, they're very pro-trade. Now, as you know, Trump is anti-trade. So all of a sudden, his supporters are now getting interested in liberalization of trade, which is a big issue. Is it a social issue? Well, Trump says trade leads to lower salaries in the United States. Well, that's absolutely total rubbish, especially building cars, which are built out of parts which are imported right across the world. And there's a technology, as you know, called just in time. Now, if those parts don't come on time, then the car won't get built and the cost goes up. That's exactly what's happening. The Koch brothers are completely against that. And so the Koch brothers are now incredibly worried about trade. Now, I've spoken a little bit about what's going across the Atlantic. What about here in Europe? Brexit. Is it worth it? Well, there's an old saying that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You might say, if it ain't broke, don't break it, or don't Brexit. So Brexit is actually causing a lot of problems, and companies are finding out, in a recent survey from my old university, University of Sussex in the UK, found out that about 30% of the export firms that they interviewed had actually been losing business and losing investment. While in France, the far right is shaking previously held values of liberté, égalité, and fraternity. Happily, the French president is taking a firm hold on France. But as I mentioned, few companies have really focused on big issues, and more they're starting to. You might have known about, I mentioned Nike. There's also the companies in the United States who are more pro-immigration because they're losing skilled workers. Finally, I just want to talk a little bit today about the Sustainable Development Goals, which actually mean development, and these are very, very big for companies right across the world, which is kind of surprising. And normally, companies, do they get involved in the mumbo-jumbo of UN issues? Very, very rarely. But the Sustainable Development Goals, they're quite interested. We'll talk about that later in this series.